Hello, my name is Tanya Henderson, and I am going to be joined by Stephen Chinsky today. He is going to talk with us about fixed asset. This is our two-part series, or three-part series. I think I've said that every time. Three-part series, maybe a bonus series, depending on how much we can get through on our transaction. So the first one was setup. Our second is the cards. The third is going to be transactions and reporting, and then possibly a little bonus reporting. Steve, how are you doing today?
I'm doing real good. It's sunny outside and a good day to talk about fixed assets, I think. I mean, I'm thinking about putting out that hot tub now, and I think I need to put a couple of assets on the books.
Oh, well, there you go. Well, the hot tub is a fixed asset. Too funny. All right, so we are going to head over to My Business Central and we are going to start on the main page. So I'm just going to basically walk everybody through how to get to the fixed assets, and then Steve is going to actually take it from there. So here we go over to the fixed assets. I'm in Kronos here. And so to get to the fixed assets, there's a couple of ways to get there. One, you can go to finance and you
Hey,
can go
Tanya,
down to fixed assets. Yes, sir.
I can't see your screen.
Oh, well, I guess I should share it, huh? Well,
Yeah.
everybody else can see it. There you go. This is
Thank
our
you.
this is our take two because, we got kicked off of Skype. We're having fun with Skype today. So,
All right.
finance and fixed assets, or I always like to go to the tell me and go into fixed assets. With inside of here, I can also go to this little bookmark here so that I can bookmark it. I'm going to go ahead and bring that up, and then I'm going to click on that particular fixed asset, and that will bring us to the general screen, and then I'm going to let Steve take it from there.
All right. Thank you,
All
Tanya.
right.
Yeah, everybody who take Tanya's tip to heart, that bookmark is like the lifeblood of BC. So the more bookmarks you make, the easier your job is. So, but let's
Although
talk
you
about
get
fixed
too
assets.
many of them up there too.
Yeah, I guess if you want to, squeeze your screen up top, it is yeah, that does become a problem.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk fixed assets. Let's have some fun. General tab first. First field, obviously, is the fixed asset number. And again, this came from, as you recall, our first series, which is the fixed asset setup series video that we did. Talked about a lot of these fields, but let's talk about it as it relates to the card here. So this first one is the number, fixed asset number. It comes from the number series. It'll be the next number in the number series. Unless you check the Boolean or check the box that says manual, that means you're allowed to manually enter it yourself. So if you've got, if you want to do your own private fixed asset numbering schema, or if you have little tags like fixed asset tags, you can stick them on all the tags and use those as your fixed asset numbers. Description, I think, is self-explanatory. Make sure you put a nice, decent description as it relates to what you're buying here, so that it's obviously informative to both yourself as well as an auditor who might have to go do a fixed asset audit. So make sure it gives you enough information as to what you're looking for.
Instead of
The
just
fixed that,
desk, is that what you're saying?
yeah, I think the desk, is a white, maybe a little like color, maybe a black desk, a white desk, a green desk, a blue desk, something with a little more information. So.
Nice.
Oh, this next field is good. This begins a cool setup here. So the fixed asset class code, again, defines what kind of class it is. And again, the three that our demo database comes with today is financial, intangible, intangible, and tangible. Obviously, a desk is tangible, car tangible, equipment tangible. Intangible things like intellectual property, goodwill, things like that you're going to amortize using the fixed asset system. You're going to amortize those. But excuse me. The next field is called fixed assets subclass. And again, by choosing the fixed asset class, we filter down the list. So there's nothing else but tangible here. So obviously, if I used an intangible asset, you'll see the intangible list, or a financial one, you'll see the financial list. But here you see the list that Tanya and I have created in our demo database. Here we've got equipment, furniture, plant, property, and vehicles. And Tanya's going to obviously pick furniture for this asset. But you'll notice that there's a default FA posting group. This is kind of where you're basically dummy proofing it. I mean, or I don't know what's a good word, almost defining ahead of time just by picking the word subclass, the FA posting setups that will happen here. So what GL account will the acquisition go to? What asset account? I'm sorry, what GL account will the depreciation go to, accumulated depreciation, and so on and so forth. So it's a cool little, I like this because starting up here, you're kind of filling out all the rest of the fields down below, kind of like your,
Right.
when you're doing other cards.
And if you set these up correctly and somebody chooses the subclass, they don't have to worry about the other fields, which is really nice, definitely.
Yeah, I kind of think of this as I mean, I know there's no template out there, like an FA template, but per
Hmm.
se, but it's kind of like that item template, customer card template, where you can fill in a bunch of fields and it self fills it in. I kind
Yep.
of think of that in that respect.
Yeah, and
FA
it reminds
location.
me of the fixed asset class inside of GP. It's very similar to that, and it will default some of those fields.
Oh, cool.
Yep.
F, FA location code. So again, we talked about this. Where is this asset located inside of your
Hmm.
company? And you're going to pick the FA location. Again, has nothing to do with the location card for inventory, but here's the FA location. Again, I've got my desk. Okay, it's in building one, and that's where my desk is located. Again, it's good to define these fields. Why? Because if your auditor comes around once a year, maybe, or whatever they want to, and they say, I'm doing a fixed asset audit, you don't want them sitting at your desk going through one by one all these assets trying to find out where the heck they are. So filling them out ahead of time, one less headache off your shoulder. All right, now we go to the middle column here. Budgeted asset. It's kind of cool, this field, budgeted asset. Um, think of it this way. Every year, every company probably goes out and tries to budget their capital expenditures. So I'm going to spend $100,000 on a bunch of assets. Who knows what they are? Cars, laptops, phones, leasehold improvements, everything. And when you buy those assets, wouldn't you like to know that that asset, that acquisition cost, was part of that budgeted asset amount? So for instance, I budget $100,000 of fixed assets, and this asset belongs there. So by me flagging it when I create the asset card, when I first create it, it allows me to run a report later on that says, show me all my budgeted assets. It's part of one of the options to show budgeted assets, this flag here. Yes, you can run other reports saying, give me all my fixed asset cards where budgeted asset is true. You can do that as well, but it's part of some of the base reports in the system, or you can certainly use it if you're doing fixed asset reporting outside the system, like in Jet or Power BI. You can borrow that field as well.
So that field's not a transactional field, it's only a reporting field. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, 100% reporting. It's really just informational only. I kind of wish it had some sort of interaction with the general ledger for budgets, because if I did create like a capital budget and I wanted it to be inside of the general ledger, let's say I did a budget, like a GL budget, and I wanted to budget my different classifications of assets, it'd be nice if it was integrated with that piece so I could see it more from how many assets that have come in flagged budgeted equal the budget itself, for the acquisitions for the year. So that'd be kind of cool.
Hmm.
All right,
Interesting.
serial number. Great field. It's very important you put your serial numbers here, like laptops, equipment, a VIN number from a car, truck, things like that. So important to put your serial numbers here, because obviously if I'm going to go out and do a fixed asset audit, I want to know that when I turn over a laptop on somebody's desk, I want to see that serial number for that asset. Very important to have it there.
Yep. And I'm going to say it again because Steve and I've done this a few times, that it's a really good idea to separate your assets, or we feel like it's a good idea to separate your assets. There's not a quantity field inside of Business Central like there is in Dynamics GP. So, and even in GP, I told people to create a different asset for every single item because it's easier to dispose of it. And these next two fields that we're going to talk about kind of help you along the way with, being able to group those assets.
Absolutely, absolutely. The next two fields help you at that point, because of the fact that BC, you really shouldn't do it. What Tanya said is exactly right. Don't make an asset with like 10 laptops inside of it, because if you plan on disposing one of those 10, you're in trouble, because BC's not, you can't dispose of a certain dollar factor of an asset, because it's going to look for it thinks of it as a single quantity here. So make sure you do this correctly. So Tanya's showing you a great example of a parent-child asset, so the main asset versus a component of an asset. So again, here's an iPhone. It's called fixed asset 150. It's called itself the main asset, and it even shows it that it's a main asset. But if Tanya hits the next button, you then move over to fixed asset 160, which is another iPhone, And here it's showing you that I'm a component of my parent, my dad, or my mom of 150. So here's a great way of listing out all the assets that belong to a big project, let's say. I'm building a server room, and I've got a ton of assets that belong to a server room. I'm building out an entire warehouse. I've got rack systems, conveyor belts, a whole bunch of stuff. And I've got the warehouse, and it shows the main warehouses and all the components that belong into the main warehouse. And again, like budgeted assets, it's a great reporting tool because you can actually show on various reports the main assets or the component. You can show the main asset and the components, or the main asset or just the components, either one. But you have the option to show those kind of flags. Show me the main asset as well. One thing that Tanya reminded me of the other day was that, if I did have a main asset, and you on the setups, you saw this on our setup session, if you check the box that says, am I going to allow myself to post to a main asset, you can actually do posting to the main asset versus posting all to the components, and the main asset is more of a reporting statistics. So that's going to be there as well.
Okay.
All right, so we go over to the far left column, and we've got our last column here in the general fast tab. Responsible employee, again, very important. I would like to know who's having my iPhone here. Who's holding the iPhone? And if I do an audit, I can go over to John Roberts and say, hey, John, show me my iPhone with serial number, XYZ. So this is important both for fixed asset audits, as well as the fact that, when it comes time, obviously, if John's going to come to you and he says, I have my iPhone, you can double check that it's this one. If maybe it's old and you want to re-up it to a new version or something like that. But it's good to know that John had the iPhone that he's handing you a serial number with. So.
And this particular field is an employee field. It is not a resource field, and it has nothing to do with payroll, since BC does not have payroll other than third party. But that is just an employee field. So you can tag, you can put your employees in the system. So
100% correct.
Very nice.
All right, the next couple of fields. Yeah, let's go through these last couple of fields on the general tab. So we got inactive, blocked, and acquired. So some fun ones. Inactive, it's pretty self-explanatory. If you do turn it on, it just means the asset is inactive. Nothing's going to, it's just an inactive asset. Nothing's going to transact on it. It becomes inactive. Blocked means I want to block this asset for whatever reason you come up with. Maybe there's something happened, or maybe something's going on with the asset and you just want to block it from, again, transacting on it. Personally, again, personal preference for me. Inactive, if I'm going to make something inactive, meaning maybe something drastic happened to it, where maybe big piece of machinery and God forbid something happened to it, and obviously, I don't know, obviously something bad happened to it where maybe it was, I don't know, exploded or something like that crazy. Obviously, I can make something inactive because it's just not possible to use or utilize until somebody makes a better disposition. Block to me means I have an asset. Maybe it's been sitting and fully net disposed of, meaning sorry, not disposed, fully depreciated, and I don't want really anybody to transact on it anymore. I'm going to keep it for life. I'm never going to dispose of it, and I'm just going to block it and just let it sit there for life. But again, blocking it from any additional transactions as well. It's kind of a hard thing here. It's a personal preference, in my opinion. But I love the last one here, acquired. Came about in the last couple of years. Cool little dip switch, or on and off switch, I'll call it for now. One of the nice things is, and Tanya and I have been playing around with BC for a while here. So, normally we say in our heads, how do I acquire an asset? And I think of purchase invoice, go enter a purchase invoice, add the fixed asset number, and boom, I can acquire my asset. Tanya mentioned, let's do an FAGL journal if you're integrated, or an FA journal if you're going to do not integrated. Just enter the FA posting type of acquired, and boom, there's my money. But we found this new toy here, Tanya did, and she clicked on acquire because it was lit up to actually click. And when it happened, it prompted me through a little wizard. And it was the coolest little assisted wizard I've ever seen. It goes through and it says, okay, it asks you a few questions. I'm going to go and say, oh, I'm going to buy this from vendor X. And so I'll pick my vendor along the way. It's kind of cool. Tanya's going to fill out all the fields here. And again, click on the, all right, here, and how much it was, obviously simple. How much did I pay for the asset? When was the acquisition date? Again, pretty simple, right? And then it says, are you ready to go? And you just, obviously you say, sure, I'm ready to go. I say, sure, I'd like to see the general journal entry. So again, And lo and behold, after she clicks finish, it makes this general journal entry. And I'm like, that is the coolest thing I've ever seen. I mean, granted, I'm in the fixed asset card doing this, not so much on the purchase invoice where obviously the invoice is located. I'm kind of doing a reverse acquisition, doing it from a reverse angle where I'm doing it from the fixed asset card. But I just thought this was the coolest little toy for those people who hate to leave the FA card. I don't know what you think, Tanya.
Yeah, there's some people that don't have anything to do with the purchasing side, but they are entering the assets, and so I could say, I'm putting the asset in, and I needed to hit the general ledger, not necessarily the accounts payable. So I definitely think that was super cool when we saw that.
Yeah, this was nice. And then obviously what this is going to do, if everybody knows everything about BC, the first line says, here's this asset. So let's go hit, let's debit fixed asset account and for $1,000. And the Fabricant line where it says description Fabricant, that's the vendor. So it's going to put an accounts payable out there. It was like, oh my God, it's already done for me. I don't have to go through a purchase invoice to do this because it's already here. So kind of cool.
Yep.
And post through without it because we're fully integrated. So, that's the acquire button. So let's go back. And we'll go back to our fixed asset card. And we're now, again, we're done with our general tab. So again, you can see the acquired dip on and off switch now has moved to on. So it means I've officially made my acquisition. And it only goes to on, by the way, if you do an acquisition. It's not like you can sit there and click on it, click on it, click on it until you're blue in the face. It's never going to work until you do the acquire or do the acquire from a purchase invoice or the journals.
And it grays it out once you do that too, so you can't. It's already acquired, essentially.
Yep. All right.
All
So
right.
let's from the general fast tab, let's go to the depreciation book fast tab.
Ooh, this is a fun one.
Yeah. So here we go. Let's kind of work our way from left to right again. Our depreciation book code, pretty self-explanatory. This one, of course, you'd enter the proper depreciation book code. Obviously, you set up a default anyway on the fixed asset setup, but for this purpose, we can enter our company book. And again, we mentioned earlier in our first series video on the fixed asset setup, you can have more than one book, but we'll talk about that in just a second. Let's just finish these columns, and then we'll talk about that a little further. So the next field is called posting group. Notice that it's already filled in with the word equipment. Well, that's because guess what? When Tanya chose the FA subclass, it filled in the word equipment from above because you saw that in that setup. But again, she can change it here if she really wants to. There is a drop-down list. If you somehow forget to set up the FA class subclass combinations that can default some of these fields. Depreciation method. Again, these are all the basic, general accepted accounting principle methods that are out there. Straight line, double declining to straight line. User defined and manual. I'll talk about that in just a millisecond here. But obviously, most popular one is straight line. That's what most everybody uses pretty much around the world for accounting purposes for now. Some people, small organizations, maybe they want to do user defined. Funny thing about user defined is that a lot of people say, my depreciation methodology is not straight line. I use makers. Everybody, when they hear the word makers, they think of tax. IRS tax makers. You can set up the makers books. It is allowed. If you want to learn more about it, please watch our first video. We talk a lot about makers and how to set them up, and we can certainly supply you those tables. But that way you can set up under user defined. If I do pick user defined, the one thing it's going to ask me to do is fill in what's my table name, and you'll notice that on the far right, I fill in my depreciation table code, which would be like, say, Makers 3 half-year convention or something like that, and you'd set all these up. In our demo database, we did not fill that in for this demo. All right, middle column here, pretty simple. What's my depreciation start date? You enter a date. You have a choice. You can fill in the years if you know it, or you can fill in the ending depreciation end date. Either one will fill in the other. So if I fill in 3 years, my date gets filled in. If I fill in my date, my years get filled in. So either way, they all get filled in. The next field is called book value. Go ahead.
I was going to say, and in the background or in the tables, there's also a months field. So if you're importing assets for fixed assets, you'll see that there's a months field too.
Yeah, it's when you're importing your fixed assets, especially depending upon how you're bringing them in terms of how many months have already kind of been depreciated and stuff. So it's important. That months field is kind of cool especially if you want to know how many months. Obviously, 3 years is 36 months, but I mean, if you've got one that's kind of obscure, like 39 years, you want to know how many months they are. That is available to you as a field. The book value
All right.
field, I love it. Obviously, it's a teal color, and we've kind of run with the theme. Anything teal is something you can drill into. But here it shows you the acquisition that Tanya made just a little while ago, where she brought in
Mm-hmm.
this iPhone for $1,000. And again, it's here, and she can find the entry. It shows you the GL side. It shows you the vendor it hit, Fabricant, and obviously the FA ledger that's part of this $1,000. All right,
Very
we'll
cool.
step back. Very cool there. The last column, again, we talked about depreciation tax table code, so let's skip that. The use half year convention, obviously, very important for those people who are doing a tax book. So while we're on this here, I'll talk about this. So obviously, if I want to add more depreciation books, you would click the Add More Depreciation name there in teal. I can click that, which will allow me to enter a tax book. Say it's federal, say it's state. But obviously, when you get to those state and federal levels, and you want to enter that, you probably would have potentially a half-year convention, because obviously that, for tax purposes, you would apply that. Obviously, for GAAP purposes, it's not necessary. I mean, you're not going to apply a half-year convention on it. If I'm doing basic accounting, I'm going to start with my straight line and then go from there, and the asset will depreciate accordingly. But again, use half-year convention. Very much a tax methodology, a setting you do if you're doing tax books. And as Tanya's showing you here, she's got her tax books. It's pretty much the same. She set it up pretty easily the same. And again, when she does if I did acquire an asset, you have the ability to what is called, when the acquisition takes place for this $1,000 she did here, you have the ability on the purchase invoice or on the journals to tell it, please make sure this $1,900 here that's listed also is posted to my other books. So it's called a duplication list, where we'll post the same acquisition on the other books that are established. Obviously, we didn't do that in our demonstration. We wanted to show you it separately here. But again, if you want to learn more about it, just watch our first video.
Yes. All right.
And now we'll go back and finish up the last two tabs, maintenance and electronic document. Maintenance tab is kind of cool. I bet you nobody knows this, but there's this maintenance tab out there, and funny enough, it's here, but it's not the way you think of maintenance. Like, it's not like I can write work orders here or do anything special. You have the ability to kind of say, what vendor did I buy this asset from? And by the way, is there somebody who maintains this asset? My common vendor. So a good example is forklifts, automobile cars, things like that. And you can establish who it is. So that way I can run a report. Let's say if somebody wants to know, who's the guy who changes my oil, and I can have that vendor listed here. Obviously, I can also enter the next service date. So again, there's nothing automated here. It is a manual process. So I can enter the next time I need an oil change. Say I buy a new car. I wait. Let's say I'm going to wait 5,000 miles. I'll put X number. I'm going to drive 1,000 miles a month, and then I'll put the month I think it's going to be. Cool little Boolean on and off switch that Tanya's showing you under maintenance. So every time the asset goes under maintenance, you can flag it, and that way you can run a quick little check. How many assets are out for maintenance or repair right now, and you can run that. Again, it's all manual. This section, or this fast tab, is very manually driven. The right side here, where it has warranty date and insured. Again, warranty date is I buy a new car, maybe I get a 3-year warranty. Obviously, put the warranty date out there, or maybe somebody's giving me a warranty for another reason or whatever it is, extended warranties possibly. Mm-hmm. The last field is called insured. Now, this one says no, but you can make it a yes. And the way you make it a yes is when you acquire an asset, it has the ability to auto-insert an insured record into the insurance coverage ledger entry. And that's all it's going to do. So I make an acquisition. Let's say it's $1,000 for my iPhone here. It would just basically record the posting date, the document type, where it came from, and obviously the $1,000. It is not doing any, that's it. It's pretty much, that's the end of it. And how do I turn that on? I would go to my fixed asset setup, and there's a question there. Would you like to auto insert insurance entries? And again, you would flag that, turn that on, and then it will basically insert an entry for you.
And I don't think I've ever used that before. And I know GP definitely does not have. They have
No.
insurance in GP, but it's not like that.
No. I mean, if you're asking me like how many people are using maintenance and how many people use insure in the insurance side, I think
Mm-hmm.
insurance is probably way down at like, I mean, I'd be, out of all the hundreds of thousands of users that are out there using this, millions of users, actually hundreds of over 150,000 companies, I would probably say, 1% maybe might be using it if you're lucky, or maybe a half a
Mm-hmm.
percent. Same with maintenance. It's probably just underutilized because, it is manual. I mean, there's no really automation to it or extra user functionality, so it's not widely used.
All right.
Electronic document, pretty simple thing here. Obviously, it's just some information about the asset. Most of it's going to be about the vehicle, obviously license plate, vehicle year, and then of course some SAT information about if you've got a tractor trailer or a truck like that you require the SAT information. But again, only information you need to fill in. Again, it's all informational, nothing more, and drop downs. So that's our fast tabs. And then, of course, we have our action bar. So let's go from left to right, as always. We'll play with our action bar. And, of course, our information, the eye circle, our information pop-up. We'll talk about all of them from left to right.
I'm going to go
Um,
back to those. So there
yeah,
we
let's go
go.
back here. So here we
There you
can.
go.
All right. So here we've got our process. And again, under process, whoop, there we go. We have attachments, which is pretty self-explanatory. Here you can attach something, link something, as one would say in Business Central, because you're linking it to a document inside your laptop if you want to do an attachment. Certainly, if you do one of the other add-ons that are out there in the world of BC, the apps, especially free ones like Doc Extender, you could certainly drag and drop that picture in accordingly. Um, One nice part about this is statistics. And again, you'll see this when you run your analysis, fixed assets analysis and information about the asset. But here you're really listing out a lot of information about the asset. So a lot about the header, the fixed asset card, like acquisition date and stuff like that. Has it been disposed of? What's the value or anything like that? Here you've got when was the acquisition cost and date, and how much was it? Has there been any depreciation or appreciation or write-downs? And of course, when you sell it, any salvage value or anything like that. So it's kind of cool. I like it because it gives you the ability to drill in. Again, you saw the teal colors all over the place. So again, you've got the ability to drill back to the FA ledgers that are affiliated with the entry in question. And it does hold maintenance. So the more maintenance entries you book, the more maintenance dollars will appear. So if you're kind of curious how much it's costing you to maintain the asset, that's why people use maintenance. So that's one of the pluses about it.
But also to add on to that, the maintenance does not change the cost basis of the asset, correct?
Oh, you are 100% correct, Tanya. That's very
Okay.
true. It's very separate and has nothing to do, one has nothing to do with the other.
Awesome.
All right, going back to our action bar in the process, dimensions. Obviously, everybody knows dimensions in Business Central. I'm sure if you're watching this, you certainly know about Business Central, but dimensions, and most people obviously pick department, most popular one, because they want to establish those fixed assets against the department so that all the depreciation expense can be reported into that department's depreciation expense GL account. So very popular here.
Yep. And you can make that mandatory or not. And then you can also do allowed values if you have multiple values that this should post to. And I would
Absolutely.
say if somebody doesn't know Business Central and they're watching this, I don't know what they must be really bored. So
They're probably sitting on their couch. They're scanning through YouTube looking for, let me look at fixed assets today.
there you go.
All right, the last one is maintenance registration. Again, it's important that if you are going to do maintenance and you do want to capture it, just enter. You can enter here. Again, it's all manual, so sorry, gang. It's just not. There's no functionality that integrates this. But you enter the service date. So I took the car to John's gas station. I enter my service date, who the vendor who maintained it, maybe a couple of comments, change the oil, change the spark plugs, and some other information. But as you can see, it's strictly informational only, nothing more.
Yep. All right.
All right.
Moving
So
right along.
yeah, let's
All
talk about
right.
reports real quickly. We've got 3 reports: details, analysis, and projected values. And again, we might do a pop-up about reports later on. So we'll just talk about these in summary quickly. So details just lists out all the transactional entries related to my assets. As you can see, I can use filters, include all the information about it, and just quickly run through and just gives you a detailed transactions of the acquisition, depreciation, everything about the asset since its inception.
Yep.
It was a tough
Very
word.
cool. That is a tough word.
Analysis, again, really just a way of looking at an asset and analyzing it based on maybe specific fields of information you're kind of looking for from a start period to an end period.
Mm-hmm.
So you actually get to pick and choose the date fields. What field do I want to use, like acquisition date or disposal dates? And maybe I want to look at things by different periods of time, in terms of the period here. So it's like before start. So you get to pick all the fields here, kind of like you're picking and choosing on the screen here. And again, you notice on the bottom there, it says print per fixed assets, only sold assets, or budget report. So again, I mentioned earlier, you have the ability to show those assets that have been budgeted for the, let's say this fiscal year. How many assets have I bought related to budgets? That's one way of looking at it. And obviously that word print per fixed assets. And Tanya, I know you and I have been playing with this one. So I
Yep.
mean, this one, I mean, for everybody who uses the system, please make sure you turn that on.
Yep.
Unless you want a summary line. If you don't turn it on, you're not going to see the detail. So it's kind of like that old detail summary thing that for a trial balance. As you can see, Tanya did it. She did it without turning it on. But if you go back and you run it with it on, you'll get one page per fixed asset. So it's important that you remember that, because if you try this and you're going to send your, whether you do a support ticket to your partner or whoever you're going to ask, they're going to say to you, hey, did you turn that on? So here you are. Now you got it per asset. You're looking at the information here.
And there are multiple reports that have that. And I only say that because I was in the very beginning looking for like a book value report, and I'm just like, this is dumb. It doesn't show me anything. And then when I finally saw that little slider, I hit the slider and I'm like, oh, that's exactly what I needed. And I get customers, like you said, the support ticket, the customer calls me and says, I can't find the report. I can't find a book value report. I'm like, okay, here it is. And then they'll, like, and make sure you do this. And the first thing they do is not hit that slider. And they're like, there's no information on that report. It's like, if you hit the slider, there will be information. So
Yeah.
learn from our mistakes
Yeah,
or
please
my
do.
mistakes. Yep, definitely. All
And
right.
again,
And
projected value. This actually takes your assets, looks at it from a first depreciation date to a last depreciation date, and tells you kind of how much depreciation expense is going to be incurred in the various periods here. So again, you can do it in summary or you can do it in detail, just like Tanya showed you before. Either way, it gives you those total dollars of how much you're going to depreciate over the long haul. It's a really great report for
there
those
you
people
go.
who are doing budgets. They want to know by department how much my depreciation is going to be for every year, so they'll make a GL budget for depreciation, and this will give them that information by fiscal year, calendar year, fiscal year, whatever the case may be, by department.
Yep, very cool.
All right, action
And
related.
that's,
And
I'm going to
go ahead.
add to this. This is not all of the reports in Business Central, but this is the reports that's found on the fixed asset card. So that's why we
Yeah.
said we may have a little bonus session too.
Yeah, I think it's probably necessary given
Yeah.
the time of our conversation here. So, copy fixed assets. I think that's self-explanatory. People who like I keep buying laptops, the same one over and over and over again. I have iPhones. I have forklifts. I keep buying the same one. You go back to one of the asset cards you have. You click copy fixed asset. It creates a new asset for you. Again, it brings over all the common fields. But you'll go in and update any one you want, whether it be maybe you want to change the FA location from one warehouse to another, or maybe there's some other things you're changing. It's not bringing over any money. It's just bringing over all the setup fields only here. That's all.
Where that acquire field might be useful again. And you
Yeah.
can acquire, we learned that you can acquire if you've copied an asset too.
Yes.
So
All
very
right.
cool.
Related, our last action tab here, and we'll hold our reports for another bonus session. But these drop downs, of course, these 4 drop downs give you various access to a lot of places. Again, we've kind of touched upon all of these when we kind of drilled out of all of our fixed asset fields here on the card. So again, just real briefly, comments. Obviously, you want to enter a comment. The FA posting type overview just gives you the overview of the FA posting types that are affiliated with all the fixed assets. The maintenance registration, you saw Tanya open it up, and again, when she, you could have filled that out. The dimensions is she picked her dimension for her department. Statistics, you saw her open up the statistics before when she was under process, and of course the depreciation book affiliated with this fixed asset.
So it's
Under
just
main
multiple
asset,
ways to get to things.
oh God, yes. And
Yep.
that's the funny thing. It's like, I know under process we had stuff, and then under actions you have the same exact thing. So it's kind of funny the way it's under process or it's in a field, but yet it's on the action line. You can get to it anyway, just by clicking on it.
Yep.
Again, here under this tab here, we're showing you the main asset and the component. Again,
Oops.
another way to look at it, even though the two fields are on the fixed asset card, but it's another fast way of getting around if you want to see it, kind of in a pop-up window over outside the fixed asset card.
And
It's
and I'm
kind of cool.
assuming since this would be a main asset here, when I click on that components of the asset here, if I had multiple components, it should show them listed there, correct?
Oh, 100%. You'll see, like, if
Okay.
I had 28 assets, you'll see all 28 listed there.
Awesome. Okay, cool. That server room situation there. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. All right.
Okay.
Under insurance,
We've already
again,
been
the
there.
insurance.
Hmm.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. Thank you. Main asset statistics. I forgot about that. So if you're on the main asset and you want to run the statistics here, it'll basically roll up all of the costs from all of your assets. So this is what we were talking about here. I got that server room. I spent $100,000 to make the server room. You would see the $100,000 because it's rolling up all of those assets to give you the main asset statistics here. So and the number of components, it'll tell you how many there are, and it'll give you kind of all the totals and stats related to the main asset only.
Very
Thanks for
cool.
catching that. Didn't think about that.
Yep.
And then related insurance, again, just the total value of insured items. If obviously if you create any insurance ledger entries that are created will be listed under every asset. Again, it's just a one-liner. There's nothing, it's just informational only here. So that
Hmm.
obviously, and then of course under history, everything just like we go to customer vendor items, just like fixed assets, we have ledgers, we have error ledgers and maintenance ledgers. I think maintenance ledgers are all the entries when you record maintenance. Ledger entries are depreciation, acquisition, disposal, write down, appreciation, all the different types of fixed asset types of entries or posting type of entries. An error ledger, it's kind of cool. It's like, what the heck is an error
What
ledger?
is that? Yeah.
Yeah, and it's kind of cool. So, you know, it's funny, it'll only be populated when you want to correct a fixed asset entry. So let's say, for instance, and again, normally um, you're only going to see this in the fixed asset side, but let's make believe you had an entry in the ledger, and by chance it's just wrong, and for some reason you need to correct it. So one of the toys under action, the action bar here under action and function is cancel and reverse. Well, cancel means, okay, let me cancel this asset, which creates, meaning I made a boo-boo, and I just want to put something in the error ledger entry. So if I canceled something, it will reverse out, cancel this entry out. Now, obviously, I
Right.
mean, it's a nice toy, but I mean, I think Tanya and I agreed you probably wanted to reverse the transaction properly so it posts the, reverse the entry in the general ledger. But here it's going to go in here and say cancel. You'll answer the questions like Tanya's doing, and then you'll click OK, and it'll post it based on the cancellation date, of course. Um, and
Now
there
it
you
does
go.
say the ledger entries have been transferred to the journal.
Yep. So let's go back and
S-
let's look at the ledger entries, and then let's look at the error ledger entry. So under ledger entries, I still have you've got this listed here
Right.
because it's still a ledger entry. But if you go back to the error ledger entry now, you should see an error ledger entry
I
posted in
don't.
the system.
Hmm. It
Then
didn't work on mine. Whoops.
go into whoop, go close this screen
Mm-hmm.
and open up an FAGL journal if you don't mind,
Yep.
just to
That
see if
was
it
my
put it
guess
there.
is that it was going there too. And oh, by the way, sometimes to get to some of those FA journals, they will be FA. So whoever programmer did this, some are FA, some are fixed assets. So sometimes it just depends. So do you want the GL journal?
Yeah, let's try the GL journal because we are integrated, and so and there it is.
There it is right there. Yep.
So it basically is going to post a reversing entry. If you post this, it will post it through, and I'm sure it will cancel it out and reverse everything in the general ledger because obviously you're on a GL journal, FAGL journal.
Nice. Okay.
And that is the end of our fixed asset card. Again, we'll hold reports for another a bonus session since that's going to take us way too much time, and I'm sure everybody it's 5 o'clock somewhere for our folks watching us, and they probably want to get over to the bar.
So, thank you everybody for joining us. We hope that you got some information about how to set up that fixed asset card. As we said in our third series on this, we are going to be going through transactions. There's a lot of transactions that you could go through on a fixed asset. So, we hope to see you there. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
All right. Have a great day.
You too.